Hello, everybody. This is the Progress Report Live. I say that because that's the way you find us on YouTube, Progress Report Live. There's some other Progress Reports, but we're the Progress Report Live. And our show is up on YouTube usually within 24 hours of the time we go off the air here. And we are very excited to have this program coming to you in this beautiful day in October. What a great...
The only thing wrong with it was it's not September, right, Bob? Because I know how much you love September.
Well, October's a competitor for a great season. This year, I've seldom seen the foliage any more brilliant than
it was beautiful, but the rain is taking it down, which I don't mind. I'd rather rake up wet leaves than dry leaves any day.
In any event, we are very excited to be with you tonight, and we have outstanding guests tonight. But I think maybe before we introduce our guests, would you like to go ahead with one of your videos?
Well, why not? We'll put the entertainment right up front. The videos we have today, both one deals with national issues, but of course we have to vote for some national candidates. We have Maggie Hassan on the ballot for Senate, and we have our two state representatives on the ballot as well.
Yep.
Here in CD1 in Manchester, it's Chris Pappas, and Annie McLean Custer is up in CD2. So, we have to vote as if these issues impact us. So why don't we start with the first one? Let's talk a little bit about Social Security.
You recently put out an 11-point plan to rescue America. So that would raise taxes on half of Americans and potentially sunset programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
Social Security and Medicare, we ought to turn everything into discretionary spending, so it's all evaluated.
Entitlements are going to consume the budget. Medicare and Social Security and other entitlement programs, we're down to a small fraction of the federal pie to run the discretionary part of government.
I have a different idea.
Some good news here to share for Social Security recipients. We just learned millions of recipients will get an 8.7% boost in benefits.
Which means, on average, retirees, the disabled, and children in this country, about 70 million of them who get Social Security payments, are going to see about $150 more, roughly, on average, each month. That's the biggest increase in Social Security payments in decades.
I'll protect those programs. I'll make them stronger.
Hey, there you go. That's a good intro. Thank you, Mike, for digging
Well,
that
just
up.
another one of the issues. You'll see this poll, that poll, the leading issue. We are not one-issue people. Every one of us has a multitude of issues that we care about. And just because one might be front of mind today doesn't mean they're all not completely within our consciousness and something that we're going to think about when we vote. So we have to keep in mind, abortion's a thing. Sure, inflation's a thing. We have to keep that in mind. But also Social Security benefits being taken away. I don't know about you, but I've been putting in a lot of years. I'd really like to get some of that back. I don't want to be taking it away from me. So keep those things in mind when you go out to vote.
Yeah.
But now let's turn it to the state.
Well, let's turn to our two guests tonight. We have one guest here. Matt Wilhelm is a Manchester guy. And Mike put out, I don't know if you've been checking out the Facebook page for the Progress Report Live, but it is a much enhanced and better Facebook page. And he put out a terrific summary of...
Shucks. He led the life, you know what I mean? All I did was report the life.
This is so good, I'm just tempted to read it. Should I do that? Or?
You're the boss.
Okay.
You're the host, Bob.
This week in the Progress Report Live, we will be sitting down with a political rising star, Matt Wilhelm, who represents Manchester Wards 1, 2, and 3, District 42 in the New Hampshire Legislature. First elected in 2018, Matt has been part of the Democratic leadership team since 2020. Matt grew up in Nashua and received his BA in Communications and Political Science from Plymouth State University. After college, he joined City Year as an American team leader in Manchester, working in high-need, under-resourced schools. That's a real good accomplishment and a great recommendation.
Thank you.
City Year is just an awesome
Great program. Yep.
Matt has also earned his master's in public administration from the UNH Carsey School of Public Policy and has been a national leader on expanding service pathways to the workforce, of which City Year is obviously an outstanding example. He was recently recognized as one of 15 rising political leaders, that's a quote, nationwide by the NewDEAL network, placing him among such highly respected progressive leaders as Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who's very popular in New Hampshire. He did very well in the New Hampshire primary, and he's been back here, and he's doing a great job.
Has he been on the progress report? He should. He should.
He should.
Next
we
time
definitely
around.
should.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
definitely
He
should.
has an open invitation. He's just
Okay.
a busy man.
We'll
That's
accept his request to appear. For
That's
sure.
right. Yeah.
Placing among such, I said that, and Georgia Democratic gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. My God, you're in good company. There's no
kidding.
question about it.
What am I
Matt
doing
is currently
there?
heading up the Democratic Victory Campaign Committee, working hard to elect Democrats to the State House, and we'll be talking with him about that effort. This is a great opportunity to check in and talk with Matt Wilhelm. And not only Matt Wilhelm, but before
We have a special added bonus
we have an
tonight.
added bonus
That's
to this.
it.
We
We're
have
a team. We're a team.
We have
we come
a
in pairs.
phenomenal team here.
Yep.
And that's Alexis Simpson from Exeter. And welcome to the Progress Report Live. It's so nice to have you here. I'm sorry we didn't get your
Thank
bio
you.
up,
That's
but
okay. It's
what
good
I've
to be
learned
here.
about it is just as interesting, maybe even more interesting.
More interesting, I think.
than-
True.
than
Let's
Matt.
dig into it.
So you're the chairman of the Democratic Victory Committee.
Yep.
You're the vice chair. You're running for your third term to represent a district that includes Exeter and a couple other towns out there. Is that right? What are the other towns?
Yes, Exeter, Newmarket, Newfields, and Stratham.
Yeah. And the big news here, and maybe it's not news to most people, but it may be to some, is that both of these candidates are looking for real important leadership positions in the New Hampshire House as we get it reformed and take office in January of 2023. Matt is seeking to be the Speaker of the House.
This assumes Democrats take the House and
That's
have
right.
more than 200 seats in the House.
Well, he's a candidate for Speaker, whether they take the majority or not.
You know what? And
But his chances
deals
are much better
worked.
if they do.
Deals are work. No, you're absolutely right. You're right. I've
And he is allied with Alexis, who is hoping to be the majority leader in the House, which is a very important position, the second most important position, I would say, in leadership in the House. And that requires also that the Democrats get the majority in this election, which is coming right up. We have less than 3 weeks to go. It's hard to believe. So, Alexis, we didn't get this nice thing that Megan and Mike put together for Matt, but I was really enchanted to learn about the things you do in life, in addition to serving. You're now running for your third term in this district, and your work with the Democratic Victory Committee. But I just want you to tell us a little bit about some of the rest of your life. Your other professional concerns and interests, and your family.
Sure. So, let's see. I should be used to talking about myself, right? I'm in the
You
middle
should
of a
be.
campaign.
Something you got to be willing to do if you're running for office.
Not many people have TV shows, though, in Exeter, Newmarket, Newfields, and
if you'd like,
Stratham.
I'll break it down for
So
you. You know what?
Well,
What's your profession?
Well, that's where I was going to start. Yeah, so I am actually an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ. So I've been off and on serving churches and serving the church in other positions since I got out of seminary more than 20 years ago, but finally got ordained a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah, actually.
Why was it such a long time between your divinity school and your ordination?
Gosh, that's a great question. And actually, I was ordained during the pandemic, so it wasn't even that long ago. I started serving the church in the United Methodist Church. And then when I moved to New England, I started going to United Church of Christ. And so when after I'd been in the United Church of Christ for a number of years, and I spent a lot of time taking care of my children as well. So I was on family leave from the United Methodist Church and doing part-time nonprofit work and a lot of volunteering in the church and that sort of thing. And then decided that I would pursue ordination in the United Church of Christ.
And what you have that calling, obviously, because that's you obviously have been to divinity school and you went to college before divinity school. I know that. But then to also add to all of that, besides serving the faithful in your church community, to decide to be a elected official. What made you take that step?
Sure. So I grew up. My grandfather was a minister in the United Methodist Church, and his father and his father and his father. It was a tradition in my household to be a clergy person in the church, and so in my household, we always talked about our faith and our responsibility to society in the same breath. So for us, it was really important that we lived out our faith every day in the way that we worked in our communities. And so that's looked differently for me, depending on where I lived and what point in time it was in my life. But since being in New Hampshire, that has been being very involved in my community through public service in the legislature.
Well, how about your public service outside the legislature? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I have always been interested in the church. We often will talk about creation and the taking care of creation, and so I'd always been involved in environmental advocacy. I also have a Bachelor of Science in Physics, and so I
wanted to get that out too. Not only on the soft side, there's hard science as well. It's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you for bringing that out. I didn't think you were gonna brag about it. You seem very reserved.
They say it's the way to kill conversation at any kind of party you go to, is to bring up the fact that you have a physics degree. So I'm glad not here.
Well, we are all intimidated, but we're not afraid.
Good. So very early on, I was very aware of the climate science, and it was very clear that we needed to have to make action and have policy that would address climate change. And so that was always clear for me from a scientific perspective, but then from a church perspective and from my faith also, I have a responsibility to care for all of creation along with others. And so those two things come together.
It's the stewardship thing that's
That's
described
the
in
word.
the Bible.
Yes.
There's the other thing about dominion over everything else too, but we want to
awesome.
emphasize the stewardship thing
Let's
tonight.
talk about the stewardship, exactly.
We've now got our players are introduced. We're on the field. I want to know, both of you are relatively, you have experience in the legislature. You get experience very fast in the New Hampshire legislature, but you're relatively new legislators. And yet you both end up chairing and co-chairing the committee to elect Democrats, the Victory Committee, which is a very important committee. Did you volunteer? Were you selected? Did you go in as a team? Did you meet on the field and decide this works? Explain that dynamic a little bit, because
great
I have
question.
some more questions coming about that.
I mean, look, so 2 years ago, right after the election, Democrats lost the majority in the House by 14 seats, 756 votes across 14 seats. So that's an average.
Isn't that amazing?
It's unbelievable, including in your home ward, Bob. Lost a really close race there. And the question was who was going to run for Democratic leader, because it became clear right after the election that Steve Shurtleff, who was Speaker of the House, he was stepping aside and he was supporting another candidate who was running. Things felt wide open in that moment, and a few people encouraged me to throw my hat in the ring to talk really about the competitiveness of House Democrats and what we could do to take back the House majority in future elections, but also reform our campaign operations. So you brought up the committee to elect House Democrats.
The old CHED.
The old CHED.
And I was very happy to see that we have a new name, because that was a bad name.
Well, so I ended up losing the run for Democratic leader to Bob and my good friend Rennie Cushing, the late Rennie Cushing.
I remember that very well. I was going through a call list supporting you, and then I heard that Rennie Cushing decided he could run, and he and I go back, decades.
To the clamshell days.
Exactly, clamshell days. That's where we met. I so miss that man, and what a wonderful man. But in any event, that's the past. Now there's Rennie's gone on to, I hope, a wonderful afterlife. I don't
That's
know,
right.
but may it be so.
Yeah.
And so we have you now, and there's no question that we want you to be the speaker.
Well, thank you. But, Rennie after the election said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I really want to lead the campaign operation. And so he said, this is what we need to do. We need to do a deep dive of what works, what doesn't work, and what we need to do to make sure that we're competitive cycle after cycle after cycle.
Especially that cycle that ends in 0.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. When redistricting. And
Which
so
we haven't done too
We
well.
have been talking about it every week on this show for the past month.
It's just
It's very
discouraging,
important.
Yeah.
No, it's hard. And had an up-close look at redistricting this year, serving on that House committee. And it's oversized importance, those years that end in 0 and the consequences, the impact that has, really can't be overstated.
But being on that committee
Yeah.
puts you in good position to start the next committee on the elections, because you've gone over district by district, you know the numbers.
That's right. And even before the districts were finalized, we were starting to raise money. We were starting to form committees. We were hiring staff earlier than we ever had before. Our goal was to take a $600,000 operation and turn it into a $1.2 million operation. We have eclipsed that at this point. We're now at 1.4.
And this is all dedicated to the House races.
All dedicated to the House races.
And I will say it shows. We talked before the show. I have been getting mailer after mailer, issue after issue, with my good friends' faces right there in the cutout spot. You know what I mean? So it really, for a House race, you expect the little Microsoft Word postcard, maybe 2 of them, paid for by the candidate, but you guys are really supporting candidates this year.
We're working really hard, and we're lucky that we've got an incredible slate of candidates across the state, 390 of
I
them.
think the candidate quality is very, very high from what I've seen.
390 out of 400 is not a bad slot-filling operation.
No,
either.
that is a triumph.
Your
There's no
recruiting
doubt
is
about
very
that.
good.
That's a triumph.
We were 1 away from tying the record, the all-time record.
Yeah.
Of 391 Democrats filed for the House.
And just
but
to
we're proud of
comparison,
it. Yeah.
Just for comparison, how did the Republicans do? How many did they field?
It's a good question. I think we did.
We promised no quizzes, Bob, but I know
Yeah,
it was well below you guys.
It was well below us. I mean, we feel good, but it's not just the quantity, right? It's the quality.
It's exactly
It's the quality.
right.
These are diverse leaders in their communities with deep roots in their communities. I mean, these are folks that are already on planning boards. They're already on zoning boards.
This is the place you want to go for good candidates. Yeah.
Not just going out
who
on the
have got a
street
track
corner with a
record of
clipboard
service,
asking people if they want to run for state rep. I mean, that's not. It's a challenge. I think it's one of the biggest challenges in American politics of recruiting for 400 House candidates. Every 2 years, we don't even get a break.
No
it's
other
every 2
state
years.
has to do that.
That's right.
So how would you assess, you're from Manchester, how would you assess the candidate pool that we came up with here in Manchester?
I think we've got a great slate of candidates, not just incumbents running for re-election, but also newcomers, including Jessica Grill in Ward 12.
I love her.
Who is just knocking doors. I mean, she's on her second or third pass through.
She's been on the show. She is awesome.
She was
amazing.
awesome. I see her going back and forth to my home. I mean, on Goffstown Road. She's
and
there.
Laura Quiroga in Ward 8. I'm very happy to say, as a neighbor of mine, and she's running the pass. She's a hard worker.
She's a really hard worker. And actually, she and I first met at church camp in 1998 on the shores of Lake Ossipee. Yeah, she's phenomenal. And, lost a really close race for school board at large, but really hopeful that she'll get elected to the House and be serving with us, sworn in on
She'll be a
in
great
December,
representative for Ward 8.
Phenomenal.
So, Alexis, tell us about your efforts on recruitment and supporting candidates as the vice chair of this important committee.
Yes, definitely. So I think after we were done going through a process with some other state representatives, we went through a process to really professionalize the DVCC, which would be the Democratic Victory Campaign Committee, used to be CHED, to really bring it into bring it further into the 21st century, I think, in some ways, but just to really say that this is something that the caucus wanted to commit to, and Rennie was really crucial in saying, I want this to happen, I want us to be ready to win, and I want us to be ready to win in 2030. so that we can affect redistricting. And so he really asked us to put together a program that would be long-lasting and would be able to have us have a majority when we next redistricted. But he asked us to be a part of that, and then right off the bat, we put together a team of anybody. Really, we had a lot of people who showed interest in serving the caucus by being a part of the DVCC. And so we had some great people step up who wanted to work specifically on recruitment. And we had folks around the state who came together to work on recruitment so that we would be able to find our representatives who were deeply rooted in the community. We could talk to them, and we could make sure that even in places that might be hard to find candidates, obviously there are people in every community who are Democrats who are serving their community. So we just had to make contact with them and get them excited about public service in the House.
You know, we've had Steve Marchand on the show recently, and
Last week.
he had, and you can catch that on YouTube, folks, if you'd like. Go to Progress Report Live. But he had, he's a numbers guy, and he had all the numbers districts, and he has been going out district by district doing his own funding of certain key races. Are you doing the same thing? Are you going out into the field, going up north, visiting with candidates, or are you using the electronic ways of communicating? How's your groundwork as leaders of the committee?
We're doing a little bit of both.
All of the above.
Yeah, and we're working really closely with Steve too, because he's in some ways our eyes and ears when we can't be everywhere. It's a lot of ground to cover, right?
And by the way, he helped solve the Free State problem in many ways, so that we could have the kind of quality candidates that we're talking about here.
That's right. I mean, look, I was in a primary with a Free Stater, a Democratic primary. With a member of the Free State Project.
They're sneaky as ever.
Yeah, and I think what was important was that we took the time to do the outreach to our neighbors to make sure that they knew what was at stake, especially without top-of-ticket primaries, Democratic primaries. We had to mobilize our own voters to show up and vote and make sure they were voting for the true Democrats. So it was Steve sent out an email, did some fundraising. The DVCC sent out some mailers to make sure that voters knew what was at stake in the primary. And there were 4 of them, I think, running across the city in different primaries, and all 4 were defeated.
All 4 were defeated. That's a tremendous accomplishment to expose these people as not being Democrats. They just picked that for convenience.
That's right.
Because they thought they could get a seat that way, and that's a really amazing result.
Well, Mike, to answer your question though about are we doing our work behind computers, or are we doing them out in the field?
Yeah, that's what I want to get a feel for. How is the committee interacting with the candidates?
Yeah.
And I know you're supporting them with the mailers and all the usual trappings of a campaign, but to a much better level than lowly state reps used to get. But the rest of it, tell me a little bit more about your dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, Alexis and I spent the day on Saturday. We were up bright and early and started driving north to Berlin, where we knocked doors with the Honorable Henry Noel, who was actually really gracious in showing us around the city, talking about some of the development.
It's a fascinating place.
It's a fascinating place. And, a mill city like ours, right?
The city that trees built, they call it.
That's right. And that was my second trip to Berlin this cycle, just to give you a sense of the kind of ground that we're covering. Yeah. And then we spent the second half of the day down in Littleton with Representative Tim Egan. He's running in a new district that's been redistricted. It's a little bit more challenging for Democrats than it was before, but Linda Massimilla, current state rep, and she's the ranking member on the committee that I serve on, State Fed. And she and Tim and Jordan Applewhite, who's a new candidate who's bringing the same kind of energy that Jessica Grill is, but up in Littleton, which is a really cool city. If people haven't seen that town, it's such a happening place.
The idea that
I like the way you put it. It's a cool city.
It's a cool city. I don't even know if it's a city or a town. Is it a city or
a town?
It's a town. Okay.
It's got a downtown.
It's a vibrant town. There we go. Yeah, you put the right word in front of it. No, and it's great. And actually, my friend from Burlington, Vermont, was playing a show. He's a musician. He was playing a rock show in that town that night.
No kidding.
I see how come you scheduled it that way.
I know.
Yeah, we just have to go through Berlin on our way to the show. I get it.
Yeah, and then on Sunday, Alexis knocked doors in Exeter, and I knocked doors in Manchester because we've got our own races to run. So in many ways, it's feeling like we're running 3 campaigns right now. Right, we're running our own campaigns in our own districts.
Yep.
We're running the caucus campaign to take back the House majority, and we've just kicked off this run for Speaker and Majority Leader because of our work together, in building the Democratic Victory Campaign Committee.
And may I add, by working with the Democratic Victory Campaign Committee, you are hands-on with every one of the candidates out there right now. So you're getting a relationship with them right now that will carry right through the election and then right to the inauguration. And every one of them that wins is going to have, some support from you. So, I mean, it puts you in a good spot to make that run for Speaker, at least from the Democratic side.
By the way, folks, I'd just like to let you know that we have decided we're not going to do any more breaks during this show. We've got some data to suggest that that's not working for us, but we certainly would like to have some calls. You have the number on your screen, I am sure, and we would welcome you to call
603-640-3091.
That's it. It's been that way for a while, and we'd love to hear from anybody that wants to call in and talk with our guests about the upcoming election, which is now less than 3 weeks away.
And the good thing is our guests can talk about policy and politics at the same time.
Yeah, they can certainly do that. We are hearing so much about the turning to the national scene. We're hearing so much doom and gloom about the prospects for the Democrats across the country. And I hope that's all wrong, but it may not be wrong. We just don't know. And are you feeling that weight of the Democratic malaise, if there is such a thing, affecting the work you're
words,
doing?
Bob, of all the words. Dear Lord.
Should we call that one the M word?
Yeah.
By the way, Jimmy Carter never said that word in his life. I just want to point that out.
That was the title of the speech, but
I think New Hampshire is different. I'll just be honest. I feel the kind of energy that maybe because our politics are so local, and because everybody is invested in their communities' political outcome, I don't experience the kind of thing that we're seeing on TV that may be going on around the country. And of course, I am with candidates a lot, and I am with people who are knocking doors. And I think when you're talking to constituents on a one-on-one basis about what matters most in their lives, rarely does someone not care about anything. Do you know what I mean? Usually it's the opposite. If you meet somebody on their doorstep,
like people are not so jaded and cynical, they don't even talk about it, right?
Not by and large. No, that's not my experience.
Mm-hmm. How's the turnout feel to you? Are people saying, yes, I'm going to vote? Or are they saying, I'll take your card, but I'm not interested?
Yeah, look, it's a midterm election. We know that it's going to be down a little bit.
Let me just amplify on what Bob said. Yeah, sure. All right now the polling has, between late September and mid-October, the polling has declined on certain issues for Democrats. Okay, that's nationwide, but that doesn't mean the other issues go away. Right. Anything that's happening on the national level, on the national ballot, which is Chris Pappas and here and Maggie Hassan, yep. We already have the problem of down ballot voting. So if we have an issue at the top of the ballot, it's definitely going to fall on your laps as well. That's why it's so important.
Sure.
Yes,
so I didn't mean to interrupt, but I want to make the point
absolutely.
That, we're talking about the national races, but we already have coattail issues that we need to deal with. So how's that affect you guys?
I to be honest, I think was one of our main, excuse me, one of our main motivating factors when we started the DVCC, and why we knew, or made the transition to the DVCC, I should say, why we knew we were going to have to build the kind of operation that we have built, because we knew that we need to pay attention to what's going on down the ballot, and we needed to focus on that ourselves as a caucus in order to get the majority in the state house. So we focused on hiring so that we would have enough campaign managers to be able to serve the state reps running all over the state, so that they could get out and talk to voters. I mean, that's the only way. If you're at the bottom of the ballot, you have to. We didn't raise enough money for a bunch of TV ads, so
Yeah.
So our
Probably never will, right?
right,
No,
right.
that's the reality,
Our best advertisement is our own candidates going out and saying, I care about what's going on. I want to meet as many of my constituents as I can and meet them where they are and find out the issues that matter most to them.
And through that process, our candidates are able to build trust with their neighbors. I mean, because they're so deeply rooted in their community to begin with, so many of them are known quantities, right? We talk about Lara Quiroga. This is somebody that so many of your neighbors in Ward 8 already know, all across the city, frankly.
I'm thinking of June Trisciani on the Senate side that filled an empty slot, with
That's
a
right.
tremendous write-in campaign.
Who's also a phenomenal next-door neighbor. She's my next-door neighbor, and honestly, the voters in Ward 1 and in the surrounding towns are so lucky to have a good, solid Democrat like June on the ballot to carry their values forward. And so it's working together, right, with Senator Soucy, with Senator D'Alessandro, with June, and all of our House candidates that are getting out there, knocking on those doors, figuring out what really matters. Because when you're able to build trust with your neighbors remember you. They go, oh yeah, Matt came to my door and asked me what matters to me. Yeah. And then we had a conversation about our kids. We had a conversation about schools. We had a conversation about abortion rights, about LGBTQ plus rights, about the high cost of living right now, about the challenges that we're facing, that we're all facing, the tough times as we're working back from a global pandemic. And that when a voter then goes into the ballot box on November 8th, they're going to remember that conversation when they see that name. They're going to go, oh yeah, I had a really good conversation with Matt. He earned my trust and earned my vote.
You can't get to every voter.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
You can't knock on every door.
And people do tend to leave their houses every once in a while. So not everybody's home.
So you leave the you leave the palm card and,
Sure.
and a little note saying, so they know you personally went out and tried.
That's right.
And there's a lot to be said for that. And we also said we can't get we're not going to have TV ads for state rep candidates here in New Hampshire. But the mailers that you guys are putting out, talk a little bit about the mail program that you're doing statewide.
Well, I don't want to give away too much to the Republicans. I mean, hopefully they're seeing some of it, but there's more.
Without
there's more coming.
The ones that have come have been really good, I must say.
Yeah, the quality of
the time they get with the voters' eyeballs is very short between the time it gets to the door and time it gets into the recycling.
Yeah.
But they are.
I'm actually turning them over, getting to the second side.
I was going to say, Bob, you're not hanging them up. You're not taping them up around the house.
I'm not.
Okay. Well, I would encourage those of you tuning in at home to make sure you take those mailers and you tape them up, put them on your fridge, put them on the door.
Put them on your window where other people can see them.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I have a stack of them I was going to bring in, but I had to rush out. I was running late, as you saw. So
That's okay. We've seen them, just with different faces on them, But that's an important way to get the word out. And then that combined, right, with somebody knocking on your door or a digital ad that you might see. There's plenty happening on the hard side, the coordinated side that we're on. There's also a lot that's happening on the independent expenditure side when we're not allowed to coordinate with them.
I was going to say there are a lot of interest groups that have been knocking on my door, and it's really encouraging to me because to see that we have that interest here in Manchester.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm happy to see it. Our conversations are not long. We both vote, and we're both voting with you. So
that's great.
1-1-1-1 all around.
Let me save your time.
Go
Get to the next
someone
door.
else's door.
But don't knock on that one because that's Laura's, and we know that she's with you too. No, and you know what? I know we were joking about TV ads, but there are even some TV ads that are going up on the independent expenditure side too. So
no kidding.
All on House candidates. Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing. That really
pretty
is
wild.
That is almost scary to me.
But we're taking it seriously. I guess that's it. It's just I think that Republicans control all three chambers in Concord, right? They control the House, they control the Senate, the Executive Council, and the corner office. The Republicans, and they're also liking to shift the blame to the Democrats, saying, "Hey, we're not responsible for the electric hikes, right? Or we're not responsible, or it's." Abortion ban. It's not a real abortion ban. They'll make up any number of excuses.
And we didn't put it in a budget. We didn't put
right.
this important policy issue in a budget. I keep trying to hammer that. Come on, how underhanded can you be? Yeah. And by the way, I want to make the point that Steve brought up last week. Steve Marchand brought up last week. The governor claiming he couldn't veto a budget to stop that policy, but yet the year prior, the budget prior, he could veto a budget,
right. And he did
for his thing. So, there's a lot of hypocrisy going on. Don't believe them when they say that they're looking out for you. They are not. They are hard. Chris Sununu is a hardliner.
Yeah, and you know what? It would be helpful to talk about the abortion ban because Alexis has been a champion in the House for abortion rights on the Judiciary Committee. Judiciary Committee met yesterday and dealt with some interim study bills that just gave us a preview of what's to come, which frankly is pretty horrifying to think about.
Well, you want to make some news on the progress report?
Tell us about
what's
that,
the
Alexa.
preview?
So, gosh, where to start? I mean, I think just to do a little through line here, I think the reason why we care and the reason why we have this robust program and the reason you're seeing the mail in your mailbox is really because of the issues, right? Issues that people think often are taken care of at the federal level, like the cost of electricity or energy or abortion rights.
That's a bad one.
And we know that we make those decisions in Concord and more so, and we need to have people there who have the best interest of the people of New Hampshire. So having said that, one of the issues that's really important to my constituents and has been really important to me and lots of folks, I have a little bug here, is the issue of abortion rights, of reproductive health care in general. And you have seen over and over again, I'm sure you've had people on here who have talked about the things that have happened not just in the House, but also in the Executive Council. I mean, we can get more and more into the problems that we've been struggling with, not having support for reproductive rights across the...
Canceling contracts.
Yeah, really depriving people, especially those of low resources,
in
from
rural New Hampshire, in a state like New Hampshire, where we need these services.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Basic reproductive health care, cancer screenings, STI screenings, all sorts of things. So there's that piece of it. And then there's, we all know, hopefully, about the abortion ban. And I think one of the things that we are really motivated by as well is that there were a lot of bills that came up in the last year or two that are very restrictive, much more restrictive than the ban that was in the budget bill. And
it's hard to believe that's even possible. That was a pretty restrictive bill.
It's very possible.
Yes,
there's smokers.
Yeah, and we know that those bills get reintroduced, and the only way that we're sure to stop them is if we elect people who say and know, and we know they support reproductive rights, and that is true of our Democrats up and down the ballot, and so. Yesterday, we had a lingering bill from last year that had very many problems with it, but primarily it was a bill that would have allowed a man to stop a woman from having an abortion with a court injunction. Yeah. And
which is troubling on so many levels.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Exactly. And in the bill, there were multiple issues with it, but also that kind of bill, if not that bill exactly, is likely to come up again in the next legislature. And it did not get passed, or it wasn't being passed, sorry. It did not get recommended for further legislation yesterday. The committee outvoted it by 12-7. So it will not be recommended for further legislation. Having said that, one of the members of the committee said, I'm sure that someone is bringing this bill up again next year.
A member of Republican House leadership.
So we have to be realistic about about what we have ahead of us, and that's we've seen these threats. We know what they look like, and we know that they might come again next year.
Well, they've told us. I
They've
don't
told
understand
us,
why
right.
Democrats don't believe Republicans when they tell us things.
Right.
That's right.
When they say it, believe it.
Yeah. And when they show you, right? And I think that when you understand what the stakes are, and I think that's what our candidates are doing a really good job of, is just laying out the argument and saying, look, this is what they've done, and this is what they're poised to do.
Yeah.
Imagine another 2 years. Imagine an emboldened Republican majority.
And
You made another point I want to hammer home just before we move on, and that is that these are decisions that are not made at the federal level.
That's right.
They get news at the federal level, but then the decision gets made in little old Concord, New Hampshire, by
so
folks
many
like
areas.
you
Yep.
that affect the enormous electric bill that I got 2 days ago, and affect my granddaughter's bodily integrity going forward. That's going to happen in Concord, and it's going to happen next year. So this November, we have to make sure that our ideals are represented in Concord, so that doesn't happen, and my granddaughter's protected.
It's even worse than that, Mike. As I've mentioned before, there's a chance, depending on what happens in the Supreme Court of the United States, that state legislators may be able to determine the election results regardless of the popular vote.
Yes,
That's
the
right.
independent state legislature
if that doesn't
theory
motivate you to want to have your state legislature governed by people who want to protect your vote, I can't imagine what would. But that's a real threat to democracy in this country.
That's right.
And
that's right. And
it's
all
very
these
real.
things that we thought was settled law, right? That the U.S. Supreme Court has actually said, no, we're actually going to kick all this back to the states.
And
well,
before we move on from abortion rights, I think we should
sorry.
say, no, that's okay, but it's making me think that we have an opportunity in New Hampshire, we have an opportunity to be proactive to protect abortion rights. And that's something that if we have majority in the House, we can do. I mean, we have to hope that the Senate also would pass that, and that we have a governor who will also sign that into. But we can, all of the states around us in New England have proactive legislation that protects a right to abortion, and so we could do that in New Hampshire.
And we don't have that yet.
We don't, but I'm sponsoring the Access to Abortion Care Act, which would put that in statute, which would put the protections in statute for abortion. So I'm hopeful that we'll have a majority and can do that.
Now, just to remind, while we're on the issue, we have to get Maggie Hassan and Chris Pappas elected, because the Republicans have already introduced a national bill that would prevent your bill from even happening.
That is exactly right.
That's just appalling.
That
It
is
true.
exactly right.
So they kick it back to the states, and then they take that away.
Yep.
So November 8th.
That's exactly right.
Start at the bottom of your ballot, vote for your state rep candidates, and work
it really
your way
is a
up.
good idea.
Work
Start
your
at
way
the
on
bottom.
up.
Do not forget you're there anyway. All right, you're already there. You don't have to spend a bit more on gas to get there. You're already in the room. It's only going to take a few more seconds. It's a matter of reading. You can do it pretty quickly. You just a few more inches of paper you have to get through. You can do it. And the pen, they give you the pen. It's not even your own ink that you need to use to mark those ballots.
In fact,
So
don't bring your
really,
own
there
pen.
is
Use the one they're giving you.
There is no reason not to vote the entire ballot.
But a lot of
Please.
people don't. The drop-off vote is a big problem for us. Is the DVCC working on that to get people not stop voting when they get down to the marquee races, the federal races, governor, executive council, but go down the entire ballot and vote? What is the plan to have people make sure they do that?
I don't want to show you everything.
No,
But we're reminding them right now.
I do want to say, though, that the DVCC is doing this hard work, but also people in their local communities also know what their neighbors need to bring them down the ballot. So local communities are doing this work, too. I know in the communities that I serve, they're very intentional about making sure that people see the ballot ahead of time so that they know what they're going to be voting on, and trying to draw them down the ballot. Trying to highlight candidates lower on the ballot, because we do know that the top of the ticket does tend to get more votes, which is good, because we know this Senate is going to be tight. We need Maggie Hassan, back in the Senate,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. But you know, they did some changes to the ballot several years ago where they were always alphabetical. So if you had a name beginning with A or B, you were always at the top of the ballot.
Right.
So they
And
changed
Matt
it up.
Wilhelm over here is very grateful for
I
that.
can understand that.
That
You
is
know.
no longer, Bob Backus, on the other hand.
I like messed up his campaign
I like
plan.
that way back.
Understand? I was right in the middle, no matter how you slice it.
yeah,
So,
that's
but the point I want to make is that could not the ballot be arranged with the state reps up top and the governor at the bottom?
Interesting. The people who make
Never
the
heard of
laws are
that
the ones
idea.
who are going to be on the ballot. So, I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, is that not
Politicians
within
have a way
your
of voting in
wheelhouse?
their own self-interest.
Just
you
a
know,
small
so-
suggestion from a humble guy.
I love that. Well, the LSR the legislative service request filing period's coming up right after the election, and
You can get somebody to put that in.
that's
for
right. You can have Representative-elect
I'll talk to Laura.
Quiroga.
I'll talk to Laura and see if that might not be a bill that she
you
would
go.
sponsor for me.
But in all seriousness, I mean, I think, especially in Manchester, we've got overlapping flotarial districts, which are multiple wards, and you've got
Yeah,
some
I'm voting for
districts that
Ben
are
Baruti. I've
succinct.
never had a chance to vote for Ben Baruti.
You have
in
the
my
honor
life.
and the privilege of
I'm happy
voting
to
for Ben
do it, but,
Baruti.
you
That's
know,
right.
why is-
And
why is he-
Representative Joshua Query. There's and I think that's it. It's just dig into it, get to know your candidates. We'll be reminding you of them, in your mailbox, in the weeks to come here. I don't want to give too much out. I don't want to give the Republicans any good ideas on, how to encourage people.
They wouldn't know a good idea if they tripped over it. What are you talking about? Speak loudly. You got nothing to worry about.
But do it. Look, and make sure you vote for all the candidates that you can. I mean, a lot of these are multi-member districts, right? My districts, Manchester wards 1, 3, 10, 11, 12. It's 4 candidates running for 5 districts, plus base districts, in your individual wards where you'll get to vote for 2. So
and even the base districts, most people, you vote for one. But in New Hampshire, no, you get a smorgasbord. You get to vote for more than one candidate for office. Don't forget that.
Yeah, you made it sound delicious. A smorgasbord. That sounds incredible. What an opportunity for
I
grandstanders.
haven't had my dinner yet. I'm rushing home
Me
after
neither.
the show.
Yeah, seriously, I'm getting hungry.
Well, I when I was working the polls on primary day, there was one of the fellow poll workers said, I only vote for the person. I don't vote for the party. I said, what do you do if you don't know the person? Well, then I don't vote. That's a real problem.
Yeah.
Because we got to combat that somehow. And I think right now I get on this hobby horse pretty much every week during the election season. You heard me do it, Mike. I'm just very concerned about the future of democracy in this country. And I think the democracy is on the ballot, small d, in elections up and down the ballot in every state in this union. And I bet you guys agree with me. And,
Well,
we got to save this democracy because it's under attack by the other party. It really is.
It's really a strange thing when one of the recognized political parties actually is working to undermine the whole system.
The whole
I
system.
don't understand it's tough to battle. You want to battle them straight up, but that doesn't really work. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to step on
No, it's fine. Look, I think democracy is requiring a lot of us right now.
That's right.
Right? And a lot of us in
it
different
always
ways.
should.
And it always should.
Because
And
citizens should have a duty to support the democracy.
That's right.
Which includes voting, but not only that. I think it includes a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But in any event, yeah.
No,
go ahead.
and after the 2016 election, my wife and I sat down and said, it feels like democracy's requiring more of us right now. And
certainly
so it was
is.
a team effort. We said, we're going to do this. We're going to put our name on the ballot in 2018.
Yeah.
And with 2 young kids, it can be tough to balance all the things.
Oh, I imagine
right?
it is. Yeah.
But it feels really important. And I think one of the things that I'm really committed to is removing barriers so that more working people, young people can serve in our citizen legislature.
Yeah.
Because it's
you
their
two
future and it's our
exemplify
kids'
that.
future
I'm
that we're
very-
fighting for.
Very proud to say that. I mean, I was not helping the median age of the legislature when I was there at all.
No, but you
guys are helping.
But I think you brought so many other things to the table, right? Including, taking young people under their wing,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
say, hey, this is how it's done.
Yeah.
And, being an expert, being a policy expert
Yeah.
on science, technology, and energy. So,
Yeah.
that legacy goes on through, representatives like Kat McGee,
One of our best, very best. I mean, she's awesome.
Among the most mentioned state representative here on the progress report.
I
I will mention
I'd
her
love
name
to
comes
hear
up
that.
a lot, and I think people do it just to make Bob happy.
Yeah. But that's part of your legacy, though, Bob.
But she really is
in the state
a
house.
great. you know, I was definitely into science, technology, energy, and energy policy, and there's such a stark divide on that between the parties, you know, never mind all these other things we've been talking about. They really think the answer to our energy problem is importing more natural gas. There was an op-ed by Representative Vogt in the paper yesterday, maybe you saw it, and that's what he was all about. We need to get more natural gas. Never mentioned the climate crisis because natural gas is a carbon emitter.
Right.
It's not as bad as coal, but it's a carbon emitter. And he never mentioned the one thing that can really help us out with our electric bills, which is more energy efficiency. Get more out of every kilowatt.
Yep.
That
And
you
they'll even
use.
fight that.
And they even fight that.
They'll even fight that.
They fight that. And they fight the fact that we lag all of New England on renewable advances in renewable energy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
Well, and we're number one for, you know, when all the electric rates, you know, went up, yes, across the country, but there was a real spike in the state of New Hampshire.
Absolutely.
So we've got no more than 4 minutes left, if not less, to talk about how...
You wanted to do another video, too.
Yeah, you know what? Why don't we do that? And then when we come back, we'll talk about how people can get involved in these last 3 weeks. So
I can't wait for the video.
We want to talk about that.
This is so exciting.
First,
I didn't know where to look.
This is local. It's very, very short, but this is local. This is important, folks. This is about your state, United States Senate race.
I signed a letter with 120 other generals and admirals saying that Trump won the election, and damn it, I stand by my election.
The election was not stolen. President Biden is the legitimate president of this country.
I'm not switching horses, baby. This is it.
Just a reminder, among the biggest flip-flops I've ever seen, the day after the election, you know, anyway.
You know,
that's
there's a famous quote that, like all famous quotes, is a misquote. Consistency is the
hobgoblin of small minds.
And the real quote is, a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds.
Details.
With a, you know.
When you look at the slate of candidates at the top of the ticket, I mean, these are extreme Republicans who are
They
just
really
out
are.
of step with you know,
they're not
state
even
values.
New Hampshire Republicans. You know what I mean? I know some New Hampshire Republicans. There are a few left, and they're not even New Hampshire Republicans.
No.
These guys.
And a lot of those folks, you know, the ones who are left are saying, yeah, I'm voting for the, you know, consistent, I know what I'm going to get out of Senator Maggie Hassan. So, you know, but we also got to remember there are extreme candidates that are running for the New Hampshire House. This is an opportunity on November 8th to send a message that's loud and clear.
Eliminated from the ballots here in Manchester, and I guess.
Oh, they're on the Republican side.
But
though.
they're
on the Republican side.
Right. That's right.
And that's what you got to be worried about. I mean,
right.
these
So
people.
look into this camera. Like I said, we got a couple of minutes left. What could people do? Right over here. What can people do? How can they get in touch with you? How can they make a donation if they want to? How can they find their local candidate to go help knock on doors? How can people help? There must be something we can do in the next 3 weeks.
You bet. I mean, I think there are a few things. One, if you're already on our mailing list, you just got an email from my friend Representative Alexis Simpson, who's encouraging you to donate. If you didn't get that email, you should go to nhhousedems.org. There's a link that you can click on. You can donate it. We make really easy and simple, and that money goes a long way in helping us to get those final flights of mail out.
$50 to a state rep is huge.
It's
I mean,
a big
these
deal.
budgets are small.
That's
to
right.
a state rep, that's a big donation.
It's a big deal. I think the other thing, what people can be doing is they can go get in touch with Organize NH, which is the coordinated campaign of the Democrats. They can knock on doors this weekend. And when you're grabbing your packet, make sure you've got state reps campaign literature with you so that you can talk to the candidates, not just about Maggie Hassan and Chris Pappas. We absolutely have to get them elected.
Go down the entire ticket. Don't skip any votes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what we really got to do. Well, this has been terrific.
It is, you know, and I did want to make a comment. I mean, we've been on the air for 13 years, going on 14, a long time, side by side, you and me. Few arguments, not too many. But I do want to say one thing. We have the best caliber guests and the most in-depth, high-level discussions of any show on Manchester Public TV, and this is an example of it right here.
Are you saying high level because like connected to a higher power? Is
Well,
that what
no,
you're suggesting
there's
here?
that-
And
there's that this
the Reverend
particular
Simpson
week
here?
With Alexa, we have that opportunity.
That's
maybe.
right. I must have misunderstood.
I guess
Mike.
the
Sorry
point
about that.
the point I'm trying to make is that this is a 1 hour long format interview where we can go deep into the issues. We have issue candidates. We can go deep into a particular issue. We have political candidates coming in. we can talk, about a broad range of things, but ask the follow-up questions. So, I mean, we really have a great opportunity here, and our guests have been real crackerjack over the past
including
years.
tonight. Thank you.
Oh,
both.
no doubt.
We're out of time, Mike.
I talked too much.
We'll be
See
back
you next week, folks.
Next week with another edition of the Progress Report Live. And